Chapter 34, Starships, Myths and Stories, Part 6. I do believe that his search in the realm of science fiction is perhaps the most promising path to finding the truth. In an interesting divergence from Christopher Nolan's ending, Christopher Priest shows us the path through which science fiction leads us back to hope. The seed of Borden's feud with Angier comes from the performance of the seance. Perhaps neither man believes in the reality of a soul, but their views on what to do with that hard truth diverge sharply. Borden views Angier's performance as an act of manipulation. He thinks it's better for the grieving party to face the fact that their loved one is dead, and they will receive no word of closure from beyond the grave. Angier views it as an act of service to the bereaved. Their payment is an act of faith, and his illusions provide the evidence that silences their fears and doubt. Borden's skepticism was rooted in the elaborate deception behind his own secret. If he were a church-going man, he would have seen right through any manipulation of the crowd, if it were present. But he only went to magic shows, where everything is an illusion, and he never had the chance to see a true miracle. When faced with the new god of his age in the form of electricity, he simply saw it as another form of deception. "What is this sun that you all speak of? Do you mean anything by the word? Can you tell me what it's like?" asked the witch. Thrum, thrum, thrum went the strings. "You see that lamp? It is round and yellow and gives light to the whole room, and hangeth moreover from the roof. Now that thing which we call the sun is like the lamp, only far greater and brighter. It giveth light to the whole overworld, and hangeth in the sky." "Hangeth from the what, my lord?" asked the witch, and then, while they were all still thinking how to answer her, she added, with another of her soft silver laughs, "You see, when you try to think out clearly what this sun must be, you cannot tell me. You can only tell me it is like the lamp. Your sun is a dream, and there is nothing in that dream that was not copied from the lamp. The lamp is the real thing. The sun is but a tale, a children's story." "Yes, I see now," said Jill in a heavy, hopeless tone. "It must be so." And while she said this, it seemed to her to be very good. From C.S. Lewis, The Silver Chair, Chapter 12, The Queen of Underland. Borden was under the same spell as the children listening to the Queen of Underland. Electric lights were just another form of lamp, the same as burning gas, and its power was just the same as that produced by steam or horses. Angier's sense of wonder was born out of an earnest hope. He believed that there truly was something more to the world. In the person of Tesla, he encountered not just another true believer, but a prophet, someone who knew the truth he spoke, whose only detractors were cowardly men who feared the loss of their own power and influence, such as the more respectable Thomas Edison. While Angier's dream of transporting his body across a stage was a weak impetus for creating a miracle, he gave the prophet Tesla the opportunity to prove the might of his God. The positivism of the 19th century had many flaws, but at least it provided the opportunity for something to actually happen. Karl Popper's empirical falsification neutered the imagination of the scientific world. Unlike the problematic nature of Nolan's version of Tesla's miracle machine, which created instant clones with full memory and consciousness, in Priest's novel, the machine creates a material body into which the soul of Angier is somehow transported, or rather, as Angier is actually teleported from one place to another, his former body becomes a lifeless husk. The pivotal moment occurs when Borden shuts the machine down in the middle of its operation. This leaves Angier in a state of compromise, something like 16% lighter, though his body has not changed composition. The coins in his pocket are also lighter, though their size has not changed. What he does not know is that the machine has created a double, a shadowy poltergeist, virtually invisible in daylight, only able to manipulate physical objects with great difficulty. What is the importance of this distinction? Both men were certain that the seance was a sham until Tesla's science invented the ghost. This story does assume the presence of a soul and would therefore be rejected by material atheists and other rational believers in science. But what if we change the word soul to consciousness? Now we find that odd Silicon Valley millionaires and billionaires are extremely interested in the ability to move consciousness from one body to another, or perhaps park it temporarily in a digital domain. And while no one believes that electricity will duplicate human bodies through the air, they can be grown from cells or perhaps replaced with artificial materials. If we turn these terms back around, what do we discover? Science fiction dreams are always religious in nature. They center around the resurrection of the dead, everlasting life, and the creation of heaven. If the gods are not real, we will seek to create them. The incarnation of artificial intelligence embedded in incorruptible bodies, bodies we hope will one day house our human souls. Yet the messy realities of life on Earth constantly obscure our dreams of the future, which leads us to the most persistent vision of science fiction, the dreams of discovering an uncorrupted planetary paradise hidden somewhere among the stars. The planet is the ultimate form of the walled garden, the island among a sea of stars. But to get there requires a long journey, one that requires an equally ultimate means of ensuring the comfort, safety, and survival of the exiles in search of a new home. Just as intrepid wanderers would trek across the desert in search of fertile land, our imaginations are captivated by the idea of another kind of trek, a star trek. Thinking back to the symbolic imagery of the Bible, we remember that a garment is the most basic necessity of survival in the wilderness, which evolves into the tent. When the distances became more vast, the tent morphed into a covered wagon, and when an island ceased to be an inhabitable paradise, the trek across the sea would require the building of a ship, with sails and lumber convertible into the tents necessary to rebuild civilization. Every hidden corner of the globe was finally brought within our grasp when humanity learned to sail through the sky. Eventually, we went past the limits of the sky, breaking through the atmosphere to the vast expanse of space. Just as the first solo flights led to the jumbo jets that can bring the population of whole towns from one continent to another, the further evolution of current rockets and space shuttles points us to the Starship. Walter's crustily titled essay, Starships Will Never Exist Except in Dreams, gives a thorough history of the concept of space travel in fiction and an exposition of the best loved examples from the genre. The language of space travel emerged during the same scientific enchantment of the 19th century in which Tesla worked his wonders. Though true progress has fallen far short of our imaginations, the scientific miracles of the 20th century have done plenty to bolster the faith of those who look to the stars for a hopeful future. The nature of enchantment and disenchantment is complex. While I have contended that the scientific enterprise of the 19th and 20th centuries was more of an enchantment than a disenchantment, it did remove false assumptions that other institutions had preserved. Outer space was an area off limits to the various Christian churches of the day. When evidence against physical geocentrism became too compelling to ignore, the theologians cast a spell of pious spirituality over the populace that still believed. Heaven was formally divorced from our world, and faith turned from trust to belief without evidence. But Christianity had spread both through the positive enchantments filling the world with wonder and hope, and the dispelling of enchantments of paganism and the politicization of divine power. In combating the evils of one, it imported the errors along with the truths from allies such as Plato and Aristotle, who in turn dispelled errors of those who came before. We are always working through a process of discovery that swallows a falsehood for every two truths, and fixing our errors usually means adding a few more. The block that has halted our progress towards the stars is our current understanding of the physical universe and the limits of space and time. Various types of hyperdrives, warp drives, and wormhole space folding, the infinite probability drive of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and the TARDIS from Doctor Who, quote, all illustrate the real problem with FTL, faster than light. Any technology that makes FTL possible also just breaks reality or accelerates humanity to the godlike powers of the Q continuum. Either we're trapped in our solar system, moving at 2% of the speed of light, or our understanding of physics, the universe, and reality is at least one major paradigm shift from completeness. You can have FTL, or you can have the standard model. You can't have both. End quote. The negative turn towards falsifiability, as the foundation for truth has shifted the paradigm in popular fiction from sci-fi back to fantasy, or its bastard hybridization in things like the MCU. Magic and gods can still accomplish what physicists say is impossible. Perhaps, as I believe, we have reached the limit of our current scientific enchantment. Shaka when the walls fell. Winter is ending. Aslan is on the move. The limitations of FTL and the various workarounds authors use reveal an interesting thing about the stories we tell. We don't always require factual accuracy from our stories, but we expect a certain level of truthfulness, even from our fiction. Some stories are more about science, the Star Treks and many of the grittier tales. These require accuracy in theory, and when science moves beyond them, the anachronistic details can render them quite stale. Others just need the vehicle to bring the story from beginning to end. No one complains about the wonky science behind the TARDIS because Doctor Who is far more concerned with the human element of its tales, and Atoms and Probability Drive fits perfectly into the cheeky British humor that distracts us from the banalities of modern life. Frank Herbert casts his vision so far into the future that the assumption of things just working doesn't really matter. No one pushes back on the factual plausibility of these later tales. Yet, interestingly enough, many people have pushed back at Walter's essay, not for any mistakes about the content of the stories he covered, but for the claim that we don't have a plausible path towards making starships a reality. No serious scientists or capitalist firms are investing in FTL research, but the readers are, if not monetarily, then emotionally and spiritually. Sometimes the mythos of a civilization births a new symbol, a white goddess, a man nailed to a cross, a statue of liberty. You can chart the genealogy of the symbol, yet it remains entirely original. The starship is a symbol of this kind. The darkness we face is vast and overwhelming. Our simple mammalian minds can barely comprehend a fragment of the infinite space that confronts us. Any one of the billion stars we see could burn our tiny planet to a cinder. If life exists in the dark at all, it may be more hostile than we can possibly imagine. So we dream of a ship to sail the stars, a ship to hold humanity in friendship and as a family as we explore the stars together, a ship with the power to protect us. The starship is humanity at our best, the product of all our science, technology, industry, and imagination. The starship is our greatest dream. The starship is hope. End quote. The rousing conclusion highlights the power of symbols to communicate our deepest longings and our greatest fears. While I have no problem with his assessment that our science falls far short of our starfaring dreams, the pushback hints at something deeper. If we find ourselves with a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that we were made for another world. C.S. Lewis. The same sentiment could have been spoken just as easily by the first scientist to stand in front of a rocket as it was by the 20th century apologist. And let's not forget that Lewis authored a series rightly labeled as science fiction. The Everlasting City. But what do we do with the Starship if scientific consensus tells us it will never happen? If we extrapolate the genealogy of the symbol, as Walters suggests, we find that it falls between something lesser and something greater. The progression from the tent of wandering to the airplanes and spacecraft of our current day certainly seems headed towards a starship. But the starship is still a symbol of exile and diaspora. The starship is a symbol of Noah's Ark, meant to bring us to a new promised land. The final symbol in the progression is found in the Apocalypse of John. Quote, "And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more, neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away." Revelation 21, 2-4. The description is of a holy city, a walled paradise whose gates are open because the whole earth has been transformed to its ultimate state, when the sea of chaos, the tohu wabohu of formless void, is no more. In the 20 centuries since this vision was put to paper, many explanations and interpretations have been given for the dimensions and description of the holy city. Yet, as our understanding of material science has progressed, the profundities of its description seem more prescient with every new discovery. As an example, the particular gemstones mentioned for the foundation of the city. 12 different stones are mentioned, but notably absent from the list are diamonds, rubies, and garnets. There is quite a bit of historic value placed on these stones, even within the biblical text, as the virtuous woman's worth is, quote, far above rubies. Why the absence of diamonds and rubies, and the presence of these lesser stones? New scientific discoveries provide an interesting hypothesis. Quote, "In the past century, it has been discovered that gems can be classified as either anisotropic or isotropic, and only recently have scientists discovered cross-polarized light, which can be used to identify whether a gem is anisotropic or isotropic. When viewed in cross-polarized light, pure light, anisotropic stones produce a colorful array reflecting all the colors of the rainbow, whereas isotropic stones lose all of their colors and appear black. In Revelation chapter 21, there are 12 gems mentioned to be inlaid for decoration of the New Jerusalem, and all of these 12 gems are anisotropic gems, gems that can show colorful patterns under pure light." End quote. And consider the other curious element of the New Jerusalem, its construction of pure gold like clear glass, and the street of the city was pure gold like transparent, diaphanous glass. Star Trek fans may remember that in the movie Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, Scotty provides a formula for transparent aluminum to an engineer in 1986. Though, according to nerd sources, it wasn't invented in the Star Trek universe until the 2130s. Perhaps the time travel story actually happened, as transparent metals are now being developed in small quantities and engineered for greater production. Quote, "The application of the transparent metals obtained are diverse and varied, since they could replace conventional glasses in many of them. For example, they could be used in mobile screens, where they would provide the necessary transparency and also the resistance of a metal so that the breakage of the screens by blows or impacts could be a thing of the past. Another application of great interest would be, for example, in the construction sector, where buildings could be constructed with transparent structural elements, but with great resistance that currently do not exist in the conventional market. End quote. While I personally think that exploration of scientific plausibility of the Bible and other ancient texts is a worthwhile project, that is not the central point I am to make. It doesn't need to be a scientific text to propel human imagination. The narrative elements of the story are of a massive extraterrestrial city created by unknown technology descending onto a terraformed planet. Our science fiction stories and the resistance to being told they are impossible points us towards the same ultimate conclusion. Happily ever after. Yet it is not simply a story about the discovery of our true home, but our fullest sense of belonging. The title, A Virtuous Woman, the one worth more than rubies, is used only once to describe the woman Ruth, the stranger from Moab, who marries Boaz, the ancestor of King David, Solomon, and Jesus. The descent of this jeweled city, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband, points to the ultimate resolution of the story, when the stranger, the alien, completes the image and brings about an everlasting kingdom. A virtuous woman is a crown to her husband. Proverbs 12:4. The ultimate resolution of history is the marriage of heaven and earth, matter and spirit, God and humanity. While that ultimate conclusion may yet be far off, the story works to disenchant us from our sleep and reawaken us to the kind of hope that science provided. Are starships part of our future? Perhaps. Those who like to take the Bible literally rarely mention the vastness of God's promise to Abraham. Look toward heaven and number the stars, if you are able to number them. Then he said to him, so shall your offspring be. Genesis 15:5. Will our faith in God's promise increase with our ability to number the stars? Perhaps. But faith that sustains us takes one step at a time. And there are likely many steps between where we are now and the unlimited exploration of the cosmos. The Bible outlines a pattern of exploration that grows like a tree from a seed. It begins with a certain set of rules and a certain set of examples and expands outward. I've often thought of the second chapter of Genesis like the opening of a model home. One complete and furnished home on a little patch of grass surrounded by acres of red dirt. The goal is not to create isolated kingdoms amidst the barren waste. That was the folly of Babel. Instead, each plot of land is prepared and made ready for a new neighbor to move in. The vision of the New Jerusalem is a world with no sea, not without water, as a river runs through the center of the city, but no vast collection of shifting depths and chaos. Scientists have recently discovered that a volume of water 3 times greater than all our oceans resides beneath the surface of Earth's mantle. Yet the image of an endless sea is dwarfed by our current understanding of the universe. If all of it is empty, perhaps we are meant to fill it up. But we can only go one step at a time. Perhaps the next goal will be the rehydration of our next-door neighbor's plot of land, the desiccated planet Mars. There's a lot of wilderness to conquer here on Earth as well, but it's helpful to have both a near and distant goal. Einstein's speed limit may have taken the wind out of the sails of interstellar progress. As Walters states, quote, the challenges of sublight interstellar travel are harder than hard sci-fi likes to admit. The energy costs as you near the speed of light curve up to infinity, end quote. We don't know of any infinite power source in the realm of material science. Our vessels have gone from running on the food in our bellies to steam, gas, electricity, and nuclear power. What powers the holy city of John's vision? Quote, and I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and its lamp is the Lamb. By its light will the nations walk, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it, and its gates will never be shut by day, and there will be no night there. They will bring into it the glory and the honor of the nations. Revelation 21:22 through 26. Make it so.